Hey there, and welcome to True Terror Tales. Before we get into the story, I would like to ask if any of you have a story you would like to be told. You can send the story in the link in the comments. Number 1. I'm Anna, and I used to be careful about my safety. I locked my doors, kept my personal stuff private online, and closed my curtains at night. But then something terrifying happened. I started getting strange messages on my social media. The person said they loved me, but it felt creepy. The messages got worse, like they knew everything about me. It was like they were watching me. One night, I got a message with a photo of me sleeping in my own room. That's when I realized it wasn't a joke. Someone was really stalking me. I called the police, but they couldn't do much. So I tried to protect myself. I changed my locks, got security cameras, and even moved to a new place. But the stalker didn't stop. They sent threats and scary messages. I felt like I was being watched all the time. Once, I found a package with a video showing me doing things in my new place. I was scared and trapped. I decided to figure out who it was myself. I checked my social media and found a clue. I told the police, and this time they took action. It turned out the stalker was someone I knew from the past. Someone with a creepy obsession. The police arrested them, and I finally felt safe. My life got better, but the memories of that scary time stuck with me. I learned to be careful and to stand up against those who want to hurt me. The nightmare was over, and the stalker was caught, but I'll always remember those terrifying days. Number 2. My name is Mark, and what I experienced was a true nightmare. It all began when I started receiving disturbing messages on my phone. They were filled with chilling threats and details about my life that no one should know. At first, I thought it was just a cruel prank. But as days turned into weeks, the messages grew more sinister. I could feel someone's eyes on me, even when I was alone in my own home. One evening, I heard a tapping on my window, like fingernails scratching glass. My heart raced as I approached cautiously, pulling back the curtains. There, in the darkness, was a shadowy figure staring back at me with gleaming eyes. It was a stalker, and the terror that washed over me was indescribable. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the stalker had vanished into the night. They offered some advice on staying safe, but the fear never left me. The harassment continued relentlessly. The stalker seemed to know my every move, my daily routine, and even my deepest fears. They left unsettling messages on my doorstep and eerie symbols etched into my car. I tried to change my locks, install security cameras, and stay with friends, but the stalker always found a way to torment me. I felt like a prisoner in my own life, constantly looking over my shoulder, determined to end this nightmare. I started digging into the messages, searching for any clue to their identity. Finally, I found an anonymous email address they had used. I handed the information over to the police, who began their own investigation. Months passed, and the stalking continued, but I could see the police were getting closer to finding the stalker. Then, one day, they got a breakthrough. The police arrested the stalker, who turned out to be someone I had briefly known from work. Their obsession with me had spiraled into madness, and they were charged with harassment and breaking and entering. While the nightmare was finally over, the scars of those horrifying days still haunted me. The fear, the paranoia, it was a trauma I would carry with me for the rest of my life. My name is Emma, and what I experienced was a terrifying ordeal that could happen to anyone. It all started with an innocuous encounter at a coffee shop, where I briefly struck up a conversation with a friendly stranger named James. At first, James seemed like a charming and ordinary guy. We exchanged pleasantries, talked about our interests, and I didn't think much of it. We parted ways, but little did I know that my life was about to take a horrifying turn. Over the next few weeks, James began appearing unexpectedly wherever I went. My workplace, the gym, and even my favorite hangout spots. It seemed like more than a mere coincidence, but I dismissed my suspicions as paranoia. Then the messages started. My phone buzzed incessantly with texts and emails. all from an unknown sender. They were filled with personal details about my life, things I had never shared with James. It was as if he knew my every move and thought. The messages quickly turned from friendly to menacing. James began professing his love for me and expressing an obsession that sent chills down my spine. I blocked his number, but he found ways to contact me through different accounts and numbers. One evening, I returned home to find my front door ajar. Panic surged through me as I cautiously entered my house. Nothing seemed out of place, but the sense of violation was overwhelming. The harassment escalated. James left disturbing gifts on my doorstep, followed me in his car, and even confronted my friends and family, demanding to know my whereabouts. My life had become a living nightmare. I turned to the authorities, but without concrete evidence of a crime, there was little they could do. The police suggested getting a restraining order, which I did, but it seemed to only infuriate James further. Desperate for a resolution, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I documented every interaction, saved every message, and installed security cameras around my home. It was an exhausting and nerve-wracking process, but I knew it was my only chance. One day, I managed to capture video footage of James trespassing on my property. It was the evidence I needed. I called the police, and this time they arrested him for stalking and harassment. In court, James was convicted and given a restraining order that prevented him from ever approaching me again. The nightmare was finally over, but the fear and trauma would linger for years to come. My life had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most ordinary encounters can turn into a horrifying ordeal, and the strength to stand up against a stalker is paramount to survival.